Okay, so today we'll see how to do correlation between two columns in a data frame. So I know that there's a function to do it in pandas, but today we're going to learn how to do it manually, or basically leveraging any statistical concepts that we know. So I think the first thing that we need to do this is essentially two packages. One is NumPy, and the other one is pandas, of course. NumPy is because I want to create a dummy data set to play around with. Other than that, I don't need NumPy to compute correlation coefficient. Pandas because we are playing with data frames in this case, so we need pandas for that. So I think the first step, what I've done is I've imported the two packages that we just spoke about, and I created a sample data frame with random numbers and 4 columns in it, which are named as AB and ABCD. Okay, let's just run this. So I have sample data frame imported. So let me just show you how it looks like. So this is how the sample data frame looks like. So now let's go on to create a function to compute correlation coefficient between two columns in a data frame. So I think the first step is to define a name. So let's say we want to name it as correlation coefficient. So there will be some variables that we need. So in this case, let's define the variables. So the first one would be a data frame. The second one would be the first variable. The third one would be the second variable that we need to calculate correlation coefficient. Okay. So what we know from correlation coefficient is we need mean standard deviations of the two series. So let's just go on to calculate that. So let me comment it. So we need to calculate the means of the two columns. So let's say x bar is equal to df x dot mean. Okay. Similarly, y bar is equal to df y dot mean. Right. So once that is done, we go on to calculate sample deviation. Of the two columns. So let's say x standard deviation is equal to df of x dot standard deviation ysd is equal to df y dot standard deviation. Okay, then we need to calculate the standardized values of these two columns and multiply them. The next step would be to sum all the products and then divide it by n minus 1. So that would give you the correlation coefficient based on the statistical formula that we all know. So if you want to know more about the mathematical formula of correlation coefficient, I can put a link in the description below. But for the purpose of implementing the function, let's assume that we all know the formula. So let's say total product. So before that, let me just comment it. We need to standardize the columns and multiply and then eventually sum all the values. Eventually sum all the products essentially. Okay, so total product is equal to, so the way to standardize is essentially dfx minus x bar, which is the mean, and then divided by the standard deviation of that column. Okay, x standard deviation. So you have standardized your first column. Now you standardize your second column and multiply with the first column. So the second column would be dfy minus y bar divided by y standard deviation. Okay, so we have multiplied these two. We need to sum all the values that we get here, so make sure that the brackets are given correctly. So this will give out the sum. Now last step is to calculate correlation, which is sum of all these numbers divided by total number minus 1. Total number of values we have minus 1. So correlation is equal to total product divided by. So the way we calculate total number of values we have is nothing but the shape of the data frame along the column axis. So in other words, we just need to know how many rows we have. So that can be done using df shape 0. So this will give you the number of rows we have. So we need to do minus 1 to this. Okay. So this will give out the correlation. So you need to return the value. So this means that we have implemented the function that we need to calculate correlation coefficient. So let's run this. So we've run this. In order to see what's the correlation between two columns, we need to call the function. So correlation coefficient sample data frame, which is the data frame that we are playing around with. Then we have first column, let's say A, and then let's say we want to calculate correlation between A and D. So this is the correlation coefficient. So some might ask that how do you know if we have calculated this correctly? So I want to sort of reconcile this number with the correlation function that's already in pandas. So we can do that by using this function. So cor is the function that is already implemented in pandas. So if we run this, we get a correlation matrix. So I have correlation matrix here. So in order to reconcile whether my number is correct, we just need to see A and D. So let's say we have A here and we have D here. So we can see that the correlation between A and D is around 0.119240, which is what we got here. Thank you.